So welcome back to the channel, and today we talk a little more about the utility of awk. We have already done one part and where we discussed the basic syntax of awk. Today we extend that and talk about how to use begin and end format in awk. So I already told you that awk is a language meant for text processing and it reads a file line by line, right? So here is our sample file. This is basically the marks obtained by students in an examination in 4 subjects, so English, Maths, Physics, and Chemistry. So awk reads a file line by line, and the line is stored in a variable known as $0. And the line is split into fields based on the white space. You can also define the separator if you want to use a different separator. The line is split into fields. These are represented as $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, and depending on as many fields there are, until $n. So in this case, it is until $7, right? The last field is represented by a variable known as $nf, and this is basically, and nf itself represents the number of fields in a given line. And then also the row number is represented by a variable called nr, and when you write nr, you can get the row numbers as well. So this is your row numbers here. So nf represents the number of fields, nr represents the row number, and $nf represents the last field in each row. So all this we have done in the first part, and I suggest in case you want to have a more detailed understanding of this, you can go to the part 1, awk_1 of the series. Then we talked of the basic syntax that is followed in awk, and I told you there are 2 basic syntax. One is where there is no condition and there is just an action that is to be done. For example, here you say awk, then open your apostrophe, and in curly brackets, you mention the action that is to be performed, close the curly bracket, close the apostrophe, and give the file name along with it, right? So for example, here you're saying awk print $0 marks.txt. So this is going to print every line that is there in the file. So the second format in awk is where you can mention a condition, and based on the condition being true, a particular action can be performed. For example, in this case, you want to print all rows where students have obtained more than 80 marks in English, right? So the condition is $4 must be greater than 80. So what you say is awk, and then you open your apostrophe, you say $4 is greater than 80, then you open your curly brackets, print $0, close the curly brackets, close the apostrophe, and the file name, that is marks.txt. So here in this case, you have specified a condition, and then you're also specifying the action that is to be followed, given that the condition is met. Besides this, there's a third syntax that can be followed where you use begin and end. So anything that is to be done before the start of reading of lines, as mentioned just after begin, and anything that has to be done after the file has been completely read is mentioned after the end statement. So let's say you want to count the total number of lines in this file. One way of doing that would be to invoke begin and end statements. So here you are. First you say awk, then you open your apostrophe, you say begin in capital letters, then you initialize your counter, count equals to 0. So because this is the process, it is within the curly brackets. So the count is initialized to 0 even before the file is being read. Then as the file is being read, for every line, the count is being incremented by 1 value. Once the end of file is reached, you say end, and now you're printing the total number of lines read by saying print count. And then of course you give your file name marks.txt. So the process is simple. First, you are initializing a variable which is given next to begin, which means that this has to be done before the file is. So this is your begin and end method of doing things. Now, there are other ways of counting the number of rows in a file. For example, you know that number of row in the file would be in the nr variable. So if you extract the value of nr variable at the end of reading the file, you will be able to get it directly, right? So we'll see that as we move along. So let me now shift to my Linux terminal, and we start with the next part of awk commands. Let's first have a look at the file itself. So let me say more marks.txt, and here you are. This is your file. This is slightly changed from the previous version. Now let's also count the number of lines that are present in this. So we can say clear first. So you say awk, open your comma, and then you say begin, B-E-G-G-I-N, and initialize your counter, C-O-U-N-T, count equals to 0. And after the count is been initialized to 0, for every line that is read, the count has to be incremented by 1. So you say COUNT, count plus plus, right? And this has to be done until the end of file is reached. Once the file has reached its end, now you want to perform the action of print count, COUNT, right? And you close this, and you close this, and the entire action is performed on marks.txt. So you say marks.txt, and you press enter. And here you are, there are 34 lines in your file. If you want to confirm that it is actually 24, what you can do is you can also say awk, and you print the lines along with the row number. So remember, the row number comes with the NR variable. So you say print, and this has to be within the curly brackets, print NR, and let's say we separate by /t, a tab space, and $0, which will print the entire line. And then you close this. This is an action, so it will always be within the curly brackets. And then, of course, you say marks.txt, marks.txt, and you press enter. Right. Here you have all the lines, which is, if you see, the last line has the number 34. Now, because you only want the line number, you don't want to print all the lines. So what you can do is, again, use the end command. Let me clear this out. You say awk, and then you say end, right? And once the file has been completely read, you're saying print print NR. And of course, the file name. So marks marks.txt. Here you are, you get 34 again. That is the beauty of programming. You can get to the same thing in multiple different ways. Only thing is, which is the most computationally less intensive and less space taking. That's the whole idea of writing an effective program, right? So now we move on and we talk some other features of this. So if you remember, last time we were talking about finding an expression, and we had talked of the file where we were looking for a name called Neha, right? Check the file with cat, and then of course the file name. So marks.txt. Here is your file, and let's say we're looking at the name called Neha, right? So if you see here in this file, you have one Neha here, you have another Neha here, you have a third Neha here, and then you also have a name called Nehal, which contains Neha. And then you also have one more name, which is Sneha. So this is also Neha, right? So first, of course, you're looking at a general math. So anywhere in any field, if you have Neha, that is what you want to catch, right? So this is easy to do. Clear, and you say awk, right? And open your commas, and then you say, you define your term within the slashes. You say Neha, Neha, right? And if it matches Neha, you're saying print $0. You get 5 matches to the pattern that is given within these backward slashes, which is Neha, right? And this is not with respect to any field that you've given. Any of the fields that contain the name Neha would come up here. In this case, of course, this is the field that contains Neha. But otherwise, even if Neha was present at the $7, it would still show the match for the line. So let's say now you want to match exactly the third field, right? So you say awk. And because we know that we have both tab space and white space in our file, we would define our separator as a tab space. So if you remember from the previous lecture, to define the separator, you use -f, right? and then whatever separator that I want to use. So this is /t and here, and then what you say is $3 is equal to, right, and NEHA. Print $0. Marks.txt. And there you are. So $3 in this case, you're using the double equal to sign, which means only this value has to be matched. So in which case, both Nehal will not match, and because the third field in this case would have Neha Singh, that is also not the same as Neha alone. So therefore, those two matches are lost. So now you have basically zeroed down into a very specific match to a specific field. Only $3 if it contains the value Neha and Neha alone and nothing else along with it, do you get the match, right? So now let's say you want some flexibility and print all lines that match in $3 with Neha, and it could be a bit more than Neha, that is fine with you. So in that case, we'll use a regular expression. So we'll say this here, $3 matches Neha, right? So what we have done here is instead of double equal to, that will be exactly checking for the equality between the left hand side and the right hand side. What you're trying to do here is to say that the left hand side matches the right hand side largely, right? So it could be, it has to have Neha, it could have other things as well, and it is fine with us. So this is what we do here, and we press enter. And now again, if you see, it matches Neha, so it matches Neha as well, Neha Singh, as well as Nehal, right? So let's say you want to use regular expressions, but do not want Sneha to be matched. So you can say that the match has to begin at NEHA. So for that, in that case, what you do is you define a regular expression, and within the regular expression, you add your carry. So this will indicate that the match must begin here and nothing else, right? And you print this now, and you now lose Sneha because Sneha begins with S, so that is not a match anymore. Match must begin with capital NEHA, right? Now, let's say you want to also ensure that match must end at Neha and there should be nothing else that matches within $3. There should be nothing else but Neha. So for example, here we can say dollar here. So this is to say that the match must begin at N and must end at A, right? For $3. Again, remember, we are all doing it now for $3 itself. And then you press enter again, and now you get an exact match to Neha, right? So this is how you can use your carry and dollar signs. So carry is to say that the regular expression must match from the beginning, and the dollar is to say that the regular expression match must end at the end of the last letter that is given in the pattern, right? So this is how you can zero down from being non-specific to highly specific for a specific field and for a very specific pattern. Let's have a look at the file one more time. So I say more, marks, marks.txt, and you press enter. So let's say now we want to calculate the average marks obtained by students in English. So English is our $4 here, right? So how do you go about doing that? So what you have to do is you have to add all the marks in field 4 and then divide by the total number of students, which will be 1 less than the total number of rows that are there, right? So let's say clear again, CLEAR. So now you say awk sum plus equals to $4. Right? And before that, you need to specify our separator because some of the names have spaces. And if you don't specify a separator, then there will be a problem. So we say minus F and /t, right? Small t. And then we begin. So sum plus equals to $4, and this has to be done until the end of while. So you say end, and then after all lines have been read, now you want to calculate your average. So you say print print sum divided by nr minus 1. And you close your curly brackets and you close your comma here. And then, of course, the file name, so which is marks.txt, right? And you press enter here and you should get 81.3333, right? So this is how you can calculate the sum of a column, of a given column, right? Let's say you want to do it for column 5. So again, the same thing, you can say $5 here. And again, you go back here and press enter for $5. $6 if you want, so you can do the same for $6 as well. $6, $7, again, $7, right? And press enter, right? So this is how you can calculate the sum of an individual column or an individual field in a file that you have in hand, right? So file has to be tabular, more of a data frame type of thing, so that individual rows and columns can be accessed. So let's say now you want to calculate the sum of values from 1 to 10, right? So in this case, we'll use the for loop to generate the values from 1 to 10. And as the values are generated, we are also going to sum up the values into a new variable, right? So for example, here, so here you are, what you do is you say awk, then you start your inverted comma, then you say begin. And first thing you define is that the variable name sum equals to 0, right? Then you start with your for loop, you say for I equals to 1, I less than equal to 10, I plus plus. So which means every iteration of I would increment the value of I by 1, and the starting value is 1 and the last value is 10. And while it is iterating, you also say sum equals to sum plus I. So every time the value of I would get incremented to the value of sum, that is initially 0 and would increase as your values change. And then finally, once it is done, you say print sum is, and you say sum, right? So this is what you do here. So let's see if this works out. So this is from values from 1 to 10, and you press enter, and the total is 55, right? Which is correct, right? You could increment this value to, let's say, a slightly higher value. For example, let's say we're looking at 1 to 1000, right? And you can press enter again. So this value would be 500500, right? So with very small novelties and innovative code with awk, you can do big things in file. And let's have a look at our file again. Let's say we say more, marks, marks.txt. Here you are. So if you see, there is a student name, Kusam, Kusam. Let's say this is misspelled and you want to correct the spelling to Kusum. So for that, what you can use is sed, right? So I'll leave you with one example of sed, and then of course we'll explore sed in more details in our next lecture. So here you are. Let me clear this out. Clear. We say sed. We open the apostrophe, and then we say substitute Kusam with Kusum, and we give the file name marks.txt, and we press enter here. And here you see now the spelling of Kusum has changed, right? So this is your marks.txt now. It has changed to Kusam has been changed to Kusum, right? So I leave you with this to think upon, and we'll talk more about sed in the upcoming lecture. Thank you very much. And the channel is doing really well now. We have more than 15,000 views, and we also have more than 1100 subscribers, 1150, I guess, at this point of time. And then, of course, I have a lot of likes to the videos, and I request you again to make more comments and to also ensure that the channel is circulated. Please share and in your friends group, in your WhatsApp group, so that we can grow together. Thank you very much.